So to start with, we'll be working with these two fabrics. One is a plain black crepe and the other one is a silk adire. I am a size 8, so I use 2 yards of each of them, but if you're bigger you can use 3 yards or thereabouts. So let's get started with the tutorial. First off, I started with my vertical measurements, which is my bust, waist and hip. For my bust, I use 10 inches. For my waist, I use 16 inches. And then for my hip, I use 9 inches. After which, I draw up my lines. I try to make it as straight as possible and use the exact same measurement I measured earlier on. After drawing up my hip line, I use the same hip measurement for the bottom part of the dress. For my neckline, I use 3 by 3 inches. And this will serve as the measurement for my front neckline. With that, I just curved out my neck nicely using a curve ruler. After I've done that, I went down by 1 inch by my shoulder to get my shoulder slope, and then I draw a straight line. I connected it to my neckline to get the perfect slope. From there on, I started taking my body measurements. For my bust, I added my measurement for my bust and then I add 2 inches for ease, which is my round bust measurement divided by 4 plus 2. I did same for my hip and then I did same for my waist. For the bottom part of my dress, I just used what I had for my hip and then I just used a ruler to trace everything out. For this part, I just came in by 1 inch to get my armhole measurement. Since it's a cut together sleeve, I just did it that way. After that, I did a little curve and then I just connected all my body measurements. At this point, I went up by 3 inches from the side of my dress and then I made a little curve. I wanted my bottom dress to have this tiny little curve at the side of the dress. After which, I used my pattern master to bring out the curve and make it very, very visible. This took a little bit of time, but I was very, very patient with this process. After all said and done, I just proceeded to start cutting all the lines that I've traced out. From the bottom of my dress to the hip to my waist down to my bust line to my curve to my armhole, my neck, I cut everything out. Now to the back of my dress. I just placed my front on top of it and then I left my zip allowance. For my back neckline, I used 1.5 inches. I didn't want it to be very, very deep, so I just used 1.5 inches and then I cut it out. After which, I just followed my front pattern and begin to trace everything out and then I cut it out using the same shape as usual. I also remove excesses from my zipper area and then I open it up. If you have reached this point, please do hit the like button and follow me. I make sewing tutorials for beginners. My tutorials are very, very easy and simple to follow. You will love it over here. Once I am done cutting, this is how everything will be looking like, both the front and the back. Now to the sewing process. First thing first is my shoulder. I joined them both using my pin and then I went to my sewing machine to sew it out. After sewing my shoulder, I proceeded to the side of my dress and then I joined it. I also went ahead to iron my seam flat and this is what it's looking like. From there, I used a bias tape for my neckline. I first of all carefully pinned all my bias binding around my neckline before I went in to start sewing it up. I love using pins for all my sewing tutorials, so you have to be very patient with this process. I am done sewing it at this point and this is what it's looking like, both at the front and the back. Very, very clean and neat. Now to the gathers part of my dress. I first of all measured all around my dress to get my required measurements. With this process, I was very, very careful so I don't miscalculate anything at all. Once I'm done with that process, I bring in my fabric that I'll be using for the gathers. The fabric is ×2 of the measurement I did earlier on. You can actually make it ×3 if you want your gathers to be more fuller. I went to my sewing machine to make my gather stitches and this is the result. From there, I then proceeded to start attaching it to the bottom part of my dress. This process will take your time, but carefully arrange your gathers so it fits perfectly into your dress. And as you arrange it, please always endeavor to pin up your fabric. Do this carefully for the rest of your dress. This is how it's looking like after I've pinned up everything. From there on, I went to my sewing machine to start sewing them together. This is it after joining it to my dress. It's looking neat and clean. Everything is all set and ready. I then proceeded to add my zippers. There are different videos on the internet on how to add zippers. You can go and check them out, especially on YouTube. I have fixed my zipper and this is what it's looking like. I also went ahead to iron it and it's looking all clean. Off camera, I also added a waist belt to it. The waist belt is about 20 inches for each of them. This will make me snatch my waist as I desire because the dress is a free dress. I wanted a little snatch to my dress, that's why I added it. The final phase of my sewing process is hemming my sleeve and then the bottom part of my dress, after which we are done with this dress. I then finally hand-turn cover button to the front of my dress. For this, I just used a simple hand needle and this is the result. I love how the dress came out eventually. The gathers on the down part is just sitting very pretty. The waist belt at the back also is very beautiful. I love the outcome. We have come to the end of the video. Please do like, share and subscribe. See you in my next video. Bye.